Welcome to Empower You, everyone. I am Dan Reginald, and there is a bunch of you out there tonight, and I'm so glad you're here because this is such an important session that we're going to talk about. Educate, enjoy, engage. That's the goal of these free sessions that we've been doing now for 11 years to help you get more empowered in your lives. We want to get you empowered and involved in important topics like tonight when we talk about critical race theory. So all you moms out there, I know there's a lot of concerned moms that are out there for this topic tonight. I just wanted to say, I hope you had a great Mother's Day. Our kids weren't able to be with my wife, but I think she had a good day. And I tried my best to shower my wife with a few gifts. I bought, and you know how it is. You know how it is with gifts. I brought out at the finale the biggest gift of all, the one that I saved until last, the most important gift. And that, of course, for those of you who know me, that was the case of Diet Pepsi. Oh my goodness, if you could have just seen my wife's face. Guys, I guarantee you that is going to get me out of trouble for a long time. And please remember, Empower You is a Pepsi only for a university. We're so glad to have you here tonight. And I wanted to just give a shout out to our team, our great executive director, Betty Overstreet, Jill Google, our operations manager, Bill Roll, our treasurer, Jay Grunke, who's on the board tonight. We had a little crisis right before the session, but he did a great job in getting us on track. Thanks, Jay. And also our important board members, Joe Platt, our political guru, Ken Bowman, Karen Cartier, Bill Monier, Nita Thomas, and Barb Horowitz. So kind of big news for Empower You. When we open back up in the fall, we've got big news. EmpowerYouOhio.org will become EmpowerYouAmerica.org. And same concept, free classes. Hey, free is the best part. And I just encourage you to come and join us in the fall to educate, enjoy, engage. And we really, really, really can't wait. So for those of you who haven't joined us tonight, who are new, and I saw a lot of new names that had signed up, and this is our most signups we've ever had for a class ever. So we're glad you're here, but we're a free university, and free means we just try to make it with what we got. And we just encourage you to consider when you're signing up for a class, throw in a couple bucks on PayPal and just help us out. And we love to do what we're doing for you. And so many people this year have contributed to Empower You. And we just are grateful to you. Thank you. So tonight's giveaway, Betty told me, Betty said, okay, so this class wasn't scheduled. It wasn't on the schedule. So we're an extra credit tonight. So you got to make it big. You got to do something big. So I said, well, last class we gave away 3 things. Tonight we're going to give away 4 things. It's super easy to sign up to win if you want one of these 4 gifts. They're great. The first is a book by somebody I hadn't heard about until a few weeks ago, and that's Dr. Everett Piper and his new best-selling book called Grow Up. It's about young adults that are kind of stuck forever in adolescence. So that's one of our gifts. Bob France from Up on 1420 AM has kind of turned me on to these free speech action cards. They're cards you can take with you that have great quotes, inspirational quotes on liberty and freedom and things like that. We're going to give away 2 sets of that. And of course, we have to give away a 12-pack of Pepsi or Diet Pepsi. So if you want to be registered to win, it's just kind of a fun thing. All you have to do is go to the bottom of your screen where the question and Q&A tab is. It's just at the bottom of your screen. Click it, throw in your email address, and you'll be registered to win. It's that easy. Just go to Q&A, put your email address, and you're registered to win. We'll try to announce the winners at the end of the session. So the class we had last Tuesday, May 4th, with Ken Blackwell, it was a great class with Vivek Ramaswamy. And I just wanted to share with you what I considered 2 surprises from the Ken Blackwell class, because I have so many people talk to me about elections, election fraud, the fact that elections, there's so many problems with them. And 2 things that Ken Blackwell said that surprised me. Number one, that he expects that there will be legislation in Ohio within 90 days to tighten up the election laws in Ohio. Several people had commented during the session that all the other states are kind of tightening up the election laws, but Ohio isn't. People were concerned about that. And I thought it was great that Ken Blackwell came forth and said that. The other thing I found really interesting, you've been hearing probably about this Maricopa election audit and all the secret stuff that's going on there, and they won't tell you what's going on and stuff like that. But Ken Blackwell said that we may find out that Trump won Arizona. I think he lost by 10,000 votes, but Ken went on to say, hey, you know what? We don't get do-overs in elections. I thought it was a telling class. You can go and watch a replay of that if you're interested. It was great to have Ken Blackwell with us for the first time. What a public servant. So tonight, this class has just had such a buzz about it. There's going to be people who couldn't make it tonight that want to watch it. I'm going to ask you to help them figure out a way to do it because it's so simple. It'll be on empoweruohio.org by 4 p.m. tomorrow. There will be a link that just says to rewatch a copy of this class. Click here. You can fast forward. You can go back, and it's really easy. I need you to send this class around to your friends. As part of this class, Empower U has joined a coalition of groups in Ohio to end critical race theory in Ohio. This is really important. The website that the group has created is called stopcriticalracetheory.com. We need you to express opposition to critical race theory so that we can take this opposition to the Ohio legislature. We need your help. We need you to go on the site and sign up because we're going to take the numbers and the people to the Ohio legislature and tell them to pass laws banning critical race theory from Ohio. I'm asking you to please do that. 350 people signed up in the first 6 hours today. I don't know how many people are signed up now, but the site is really great. It's got FAQs, it's got resources, it's got information on what CRT is because it's confusing. It's got information on what you can do to find out if your kids are in the middle of it. Stopcriticalracetheory.com. Please go to the site and sign up at the end of the class. So as part of getting ready for this class, I made the effort to contact Governor Mike DeWine's office and John Husted's office. I had a contact there that I've known for a long time, a good friend. And I didn't hear anything back from him about whether the governor or the lieutenant governor would make a statement at tonight's class about critical race theory. So I emailed my friend today, and he jotted me back a note and said, no, I'm sorry, there's just not going to be a statement made. And then I was sitting at my desk with my phone, and in came a number that I hadn't seen that said John Husted. And surprisingly, about 10:30, I picked up the phone and it was Lieutenant Governor John Husted. I appreciated his call, and I wanted to tell you what he said about critical race theory in Ohio as part of this class. I transcribed, I was kind of writing as feverishly as I could, and I want to tell you exactly what he said, and this is what he said. Critical race theory is not the solution to problems that exist about race. I'm very concerned about CRT in my own kids' school. I think everybody's concerned about it. And he said, what we need to do is acknowledge and support minority students in a way that doesn't undermine the theories and beliefs about capitalism that we've learned. I want all minorities in Ohio to fulfill their God-given abilities and to follow the teachings that we've learned from Martin Luther King. Lieutenant Governor Husted went on to say, I'll be meeting with the governor for an extensive period of time in a few days, and we will look at ways we can create a solution. Someone told me that under CRT that the teachings of Martin Luther King are now invalid. And this is Lieutenant Governor Husted, and he said, what? And I don't know if you all know that, but that's one of the things about this crazy equity thing that's trying to be pushed on us. And Lieutenant Governor Husted ended by saying, in the meantime, please send me any thoughts you have for ways to improve our issues about race in Ohio, which don't involve critical race theory. I just say bravo, John Husted. Now let's see the legislation to get it done. So tonight, we have got some great speakers lined up for you tonight who are going to talk about things that are going on in their areas. And I'm really sorry to report that Jack Windsor, who we had scheduled to be on with us for the first 10 minutes, couldn't make it. Something came up and he was unable to be here. I think he maybe got called away for a big story. And I'm really sorry you don't get a chance to hear Jack, who has done some great work throughout Ohio during the pandemic. but it's kind of good because the session was tight. I was worried about time, and this will give everybody a little bit more time, and we can ask some questions. So when Kurt Hartman, the attorney who helped me file the lawsuit against the Board of Education, I don't have any big news to report about that. When he filed it, he really talked to me about Marxism and critical race theory and the fact that Marxism is such a big part of it. And it's kind of hard. People I found don't really understand that correlation. So I asked Tom Hagedorn, a friend of mine who helped many of us write a good part of the website. I asked him if he would consider joining us to explain Marxism and critical race theory. And let me just tell you about Tom. He's really a professional student. He loves reading, researching, and writing about many topics. In his college days, he co-published 2 papers of peer-reviewed scientific journals, and he's taught classes at Xavier University and the Osher Lifelong Living Institute. He's enjoyed a career in financial services that spans 5 decades. He's married with 2 adult children and 3 grandchildren. And Tom told me, he said, Dan, he said, the only way that I'll come on for a few minutes and talk about the relationship between Marxism and critical race theory is if you play my official music. So Tom Hagedorn, here you go. This is your official music. And with that said, Tom Hagedorn, welcome to Empower You, and thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Dan. Hey, this is a pleasure, and that was that. I shouldn't chuckle at that, but but you have to chuckle.
We have to have fun, don't we?
Yes, we do. So, is critical race theory Marxist? Well, when I first considered this question, I have to confess I was skeptical. Surely this had to be some over-the-top attempt to try to tie critical race theory, I'll call it CRT tonight, to Marxism, which is a vile philosophy that's responsible for the deaths of 100 million citizens of Russia, China, North Korea, Cambodia, many other countries over the last 100 years or so. So I asked myself, I said, well, we can't possibly be indoctrinating Americans. We're people that love freedom in our schools, universities, governments, the armed services, corporations, and even in some of our churches with such hateful ideas. Well, sorry to report, it is true. Critical race theory and its coercive methods are Marxist. But I'm not going to ask you just to believe me. Read about it yourself. So I'm going to ask you to take a pen and a piece of paper. All right. If you can't find paper, write it on your hand. But I'm going to ask you to write down a few terms as we go through my brief talk here. And then later, after my talk, after this whole session, I want you to look these terms up on Wikipedia, and you'll prove it to yourself. So I'm going to wait 5 minutes now. There's going to be some radio silence. Go get those pens. Okay. So the Communist Manifesto. All right, I have it right here, slim little volume, written by Marx and Engels in 1848. It was based on the idea that all of society was designed to oppress the workers, who they called the proletariat, by the capitalists, who they called the bourgeoisie. And they wanted, they being Marx and Engels, they wanted to replace capitalist economics with a system where all economic decisions would be made by central planners. But to accomplish that, they needed to convince those workers that they were so oppressed that they would revolt, they would destroy the existing society and build up this new utopia. The natural laws of supply and demand would be replaced by scores of government planners. Well, they got their revolution, but Lenin quickly found out that this system doesn't work. when 5 million Russians perished during this winter of 1921 and 1922, one of the greatest human disasters of the natural disasters of the 20th century. By the 1930s, Marxists in Western Europe were frustrated by their inability to seize power. They had come to the same conclusion. Capitalism had worked well enough, in fact, that the workers would never become dissatisfied enough to seek revolution. So European intellectuals, especially in Germany, decided that if people could not be divided by economics, perhaps they could be motivated by cultural or social factors. And this became the strategy of what's known as Western Marxism, which is centered in the Frankfurt School of Thought. So pick up those pens now. All right, you're going to have some, first time ever, I think, we're going to have homework for Empower You. So write down first that stopcriticalracetheory.com. Write that down. You need to go there. And under the FAQ, there's an FAQ, is CRT Marxist? Okay, go to that and that'll give you the Cliff's Notes on this talk. But I want you also to write down Western Marxism. Put a dash between the Western and the Marxism. I want you to write down Frankfurt School. Frankfurt School. I want you to write down Institute for Social Research. And later after this talk or tomorrow, I want you to go and look up the Wikipedia articles. Don't go to the Wikipedia articles on these things. They're very good. So many of the leaders of the Frankfurt School immigrated to the United States in the 1930s, and they moved to Columbia University. They developed a philosophy called critical theory, or CT, critical theory. They and their students eventually used this Marxist template to divide people into groups by race, gender, gender identity, and sexual attraction. Every person was either an oppressor or a victim, simply because they belonged to a particular group. Critical race theory, CRT, is the branch of critical theory that deals with race. Okay, so pick up those pens again. 2 more quick notes. You're going to write down critical theory, and then you're going to write down critical race theory. And you're going to go, I hope, to Wikipedia again and read the articles in there. They're not that long. So critical race theory was born in American universities in the 1970s. It stayed within academia for years until it began its long infiltration into American cultural and social institutions. Many of the founders of critical theory were communists or Marxists. The same is true of a number of the leaders of CRT. Critical race theory. Knowing that communism and Marxism, though, carry very bad connotations for many of us here in America, it's likely that some CRT leaders are hiding their true beliefs and associations. But some of them are proud of it and very open about it. Patrice Colors, or Patrice Colors, who is one of the co-founders of BLM, has proudly proclaimed that she and her associates are, quote, trained Marxists. Okay, so pick up the pens. Now, these are going to be fast. Just write them down. All these names are in the articles. You'll be able to find them. So Antonio Gramsci, Michel Foucault, Herbert Marcuse, W.E.B. Du Bois, Paul Robeson, Derek Bell, Patricia J. Williams. Look these people up. So in conclusion, please, if you love your kids, your grandkids, your neighbors' kids, your country, spend 15 minutes to a half hour, go to the Stop Critical Race Theory website, look at the FAQ, and go to the Wikipedia and educate yourself about this virus.
Thank you, Tom. It's such a hard kind of definition when people talk about Marxism, but I think you did a great job, and I really appreciate you researching that. And if you missed that, if it went by a little too fast, just go to that website under the FAQ section and you'll be able to pick it up. Tom Hagedorn, thank you for joining Empower You. Appreciate
Thank you, Dan.
We're so glad tonight to have Kim Georgeton with us. She's our first speaker, and she's a concerned parent of a 9th grade student at a local private Christian school in Cincinnati. I was so glad when she called yesterday because you tend to think this is all going on in public schools, but it isn't. I've had so many people tell me it's just as bad, if not worse, in the private schools. And Kim has followed the cultural and societal developments over the last several months and has grave concerns about the future education of our youth. She's noticed changes in the worldview being force-fed into our society through government education that's really done with our own tax dollars. And she was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, but has traveled the world. So Kim Georgeton, welcome to Empower You. We're so glad to have you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, and I'm thrilled to share my thoughts with you. Again, as he mentioned, really, I have a daughter in the 9th grade who attends Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy. And we have been seeing just a few things kind of slip into our world that we have concerns about. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's a full-blown curriculum, but we're noticing trends and things that are changing that cause for us to be concerned. So before I get into it, I want to make sure there's just a short acknowledgement. I am just a mom. My ideas here are really based upon personal opinion, observations, and anecdotes. Always as worldviews may differ, I encourage each of you to do your own due diligence and your research before forming your own opinions. And of course, all assumptions that I have in general are usually made under the consideration that most people operate with the best of intentions. So just my acknowledgement there so that we're all kind of on the same page with where I'm coming from. So critical race theory, from our observations, is really often already being implemented purposefully, sometimes as well, without your knowledge. I'm going to just go over a few areas that I noticed. One is really this, what I call a slow drip. And I'm going to share with you a few things that you might want to look out for. I tried to keep my observations at a very high level rather than going into a lot of detail. Second, to kind of tie into our previous presenter, there's a new term out there called Marxianity, which is really the merging of Christianity and Marxism. So yes, what's really happening out there is it does seem like the Marxism is actually infiltrating into our churches. There's also a few examples that I have that I want to share with you regarding some church creep that we have noticed. Thirdly, there's this terminology obviously called social justice, which is really ties up the whole critical race theory into a nice bow. But I want to compare that with you to what we are calling biblical justice and call out some of the differences. So this is really for anyone who is a Christian, anyone who believes there is a fight of good versus evil. Even if you're not a Christian and you're of some other religion, I think it's still very relevant in terms of the overall effort that we're seeing here. So what to look out for, really diversity, equity, and inclusion is the huge buzzword that is out in the market right now. Sometimes you'll see it as the acronym DEI. Some people confuse it and call it DIE, but whatever, that is really what we're looking for. So many school districts, including ours, have hired a DEI director. The role of that individual is really to oversee what happens within that school environment related to rolling out these various programs and these ideologies. For us, we had really been told by our administration that there was not going to be any curriculum whatsoever rolled out into our schools. But unbeknownst, we are hearing things from our students, and we're also seeing things that cause us to believe otherwise. The 4 areas that I'm going into here with you right now are really taking notice of faculty, taking notice of books and activities, taking notice of tools, and also some anecdotes. So really, if you start to notice that maybe some of your faculty members are getting a degree in social justice, that is actually out there, you might want to check into that. Also, if a director of DEI is hired, that is also another trigger to start to look into things more seriously. Even beyond that, there are teachers who already are absorbed in this ideology and are sort of adopting that as part of their own classes. That's really not sort of a legitimate curriculum, but they're just kind of incorporating it into their own syllabus. As far as books and activities, we are finding that progressive book selections are being sort of featured in various areas within the school. These are kinds of books are only representing one worldview, not the other worldview, which causes us to concern. Also, the creation of what is being called a sort of multicultural union or multicultural club, whereas if you don't join, you're not necessarily seen as someone who is concerned about diversity. Tools, there's the implicit bias test, which is usually one of the first things that the school will kind of roll out and test and try. This is a sort of a test that you take online, and you get a result at the end, which determines how biased you are with your subconscious thoughts and feelings. There are soft surveys, which kind of referencing back to the faculty and the syllabus that are coming out, sometimes related to whatever it is they're studying at the time. So I would highly encourage you to talk to your students. I know we're all very busy and we've kind of gotten into this rigmarole with activities and you know, sometimes hardly even sitting down for dinner together. But it's really important to have those conversations at the end of the day so that you can be aware of what those anecdotes are. I mean, I even heard recently today that a middle school teacher was basically telling, you know, all of the middle school students about how dangerous COVID is and that they absolutely needed to get the vaccine, and made the students raise their hand as to whether or not they were going to get the vaccine. So these things are happening without our knowledge, and you really won't find out unless you're talking to your student, to your child. There's a software application called BrainPop. BrainPop is very popular. It's in many schools, but there are now new modules that are related to anti-racism as well as genderism. And I actually have a video to share with you on this call a little bit later. There's also a curriculum called Undivided, which was part of a rollout at the large Crossroads Church, which I know has also been cause for some concern and some parishioners to depart that particular congregation. There's also a course called Courageous Conversations, which aims to start this dialogue about the oppressor versus the oppressed. Regarding anecdotes, there, you know, again, this is related to having conversations with your kids. Children are coming home from school asking why their skin is white and not understanding. Children who are of color, who are being called whitewashed because they're hanging out with white friends. And then there's also some selective discipline where, you know, as it relates to Marxism, the oppressor is always the right person. So sometimes if an oppressor is, you know, causing a disturbance at school, they may not necessarily be getting the appropriate punishment, where if you're part of the oppressed group, you might be getting overly punished for what you do. So these are things to really look out for. And then really, this next slide here is just a collection of some of these books that will be coming out to you through, through the DEI directors. They will really get behind, you know, trying to suggest reading all of these various materials. So I would encourage you to be on the lookout for these. And anytime the name Ibram X. Kendi is brought up, I would perk your ears up at that conversation, because he is known as someone who really believes in this deep in his heart. This particular thing that I'm going to share with you next is regarding the BrainPop, and I'm going to go ahead and play the video.
To is actually already teaching our kids in our district what she's talking about, as well as telling them about critical race theory. I recorded the video from BrainPop's official Instagram page. Hope you can hear it.
Racism in our society, a built-in system of bias that makes life easier for white people and more difficult for Black people and other people of color. It puts them at greater risk for poverty, unemployment, and disease. Structural racism is a factor in some disturbing trends. Black people are nearly 6 times more likely than whites to be imprisoned. And Black men are killed by police at more than twice the rate of white men.
All right, so that's the first video. They're telling our kids, they're telling our Black children that they are oppressed by white people and that it's in the system, so they don't have a chance, and that our good policemen are more apt to shoot a Black man or a Black woman, which is ridiculous. The next video I'm going to show you.
Two robots, I guess.
They're teaching incorrect grammar to give a kid whatever gender pronoun they want. Psychology tells you that when you're talking about sexuality with kids, their brains are not developed. You have to raise a child, you really child. They don't know about sexuality. When an adult pushes some ideas upon them, it winds up grooming them to believe whatever the adult tells them. So this is the video by Brain Pop that our kids are spending hours in front of. This is what they're telling them about the pronouns. And the ACT already gave the kids the opportunity to choose their own gender when they took the ACT. I got pictures of the forms.
Like Moby and Orbot, they are my best friends. Actually, yeah, they can be used as a singular pronoun too. Like if you said, I'm going to see my friend, I can ask, where do they live? Since I don't know your friend's gender identity. And some individuals prefer they as a pronoun. Like meet Orbot, they are my best friend.
We got kids that can't read and write, and then we're going to teach them incorrect grammar. I mean, it's ridiculous, okay? Who gave permission to talk about this? There's two genders. If you're born with a
Disturbing. So that is a little bit to look out for with Brain Pop. What I have found thus far in the greater Cincinnati area, schools that I know for sure are part of the more biblical worldview, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as I get further into the slides.
And Kim, we've got to kind of get everybody going. Can you kind of summarize, and then maybe we can come back to you for some questions?
Absolutely. So real quick, Marxianity is a great book that you should check out. And again, this presentation will be available, I believe, in the materials that they'll send out afterward. So you can refer to exactly what that's all about, but it's essentially the integrating of Marxism into Christianity. The church creep examples are here. And then really, I would encourage everyone to read this particular article, which is written by Dan McDowell, called Social Justice versus Biblical Justice. It takes you through the whole process of the difference of those two things. There are also some great definitions here that you can get yourself familiarized with so that you can look for these cues. And then here, one of the last few slides is really some book recommendations to help you understand the counter argument to all of this. And I guess that's really it. I'll turn it over to the next person.
Thank you so much, Kim, for joining us. I know you've got another meeting to go to, but what a great presentation. Anybody will be able to rewatch this tomorrow and get all your books put together. Thanks, and have a great night. Thanks for coming to Empower You.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Maureen Botos, who's a native Ohioan that moved to the Olentangy School District from Missouri in March 2020. Her husband and three kids, 13, 11, and 6, moved to the district because they were told it was one of the best in the state. After being in the district for just a few months, Maureen, a stay-at-home mother, noticed the district was promoting controversial views. This prompted her and many parents to create a Facebook group. Many parents, I'll just say, have contacted me from this school district. And from this group, they started a nonprofit called Olentangy for Students. Maureen, welcome to Empower You. We're so glad to have you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm glad that I'm able to actually share what's going on in Olentangy with you. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see a presentation. All right, here you go. So how CRT has infiltrated Olentangy schools in the name of diversity, which we're seeing a lot of that word, but it's not truly what it is. So this is me. I got involved with this mission because in the fall, my family was pushing and trying to get our kids to be able to do full-time learning at Olentangy. They kept us in hybrid, and we kept going and doing rallies at the school board. So that's actually how I was able to meet some of the wonderful other parents to be able to create this Concerned Olentangy group, because it opened up a whole world of knowing what is actually going on in the school. Because of the hybrid, a lot of parents were able to see what was going on. I know a lot of people have been able to see it because it's been in their homes instead of just in the classroom. So Olentangy, some of you may know, is the 6th largest district in the state with over 25,000 students and staff. There are 15 elementaries, 5 middle schools, and 4 high schools. 3 of the 4 high schools are in the top 20 best high schools in Ohio. And the 4th one is a newer school, so it's not ranked yet, but I'm sure it will be on the top of the list as well. The community is a very proud community of the reputation that the school has. The students, the staffs, all of the community is very proud of how the school district that they've built. The excellent school ratings are a major factor in the rapid growth of Olentangy district. Actually, Olentangy is projected to have over 27,000 students by 2030. So it's growing rapidly. I know it's grown rapidly in the past as well. So while all of the families here have been, and we moved here for the schools as well. While all of the families moved to here and are enjoying this wonderful district, many have been lulled into security of sending their kids to school with excellent ratings, and non-academic CRT has been creeping into the classrooms and indoctrinating our kids with ideals that many of us would agree have nothing to do with academics and are often directly contrary to their well-being. The problem has become glaringly evident, and parents are becoming increasingly informed and shocked about what is really being taught in our classrooms. As you can see at the top of the page, Olentangy's mission is to facilitate maximum learning for every student. So let's keep that in mind when I show you some of these things to tell us if that is the case in Olentangy. So Olentangy, there is actually no set curriculum in Olentangy. They just follow the state standards. So they have a curriculum department. That curriculum department only has 3 curriculum development employees, and those people essentially just oversee and evaluate the materials that are used in the classroom. However, as we've discovered recently, this has largely been just a rubber stamp, and materials are approved with little or no assessment. Our students are using BrainPop as well, and you'll see some other things that have been pushed or have been used within the district that are not good for our students. So during a year in which distance learning and hybrid learning have created such challenges for our students, this seems like a gross misuse of our resources for a school whose mission statement is, once again, to facilitate the maximum learning of every student. And as you can see on the slide, it shows that we have an equity and inclusion department, and we have 4 employees. There's actually currently 3, but there's an open position right now. So that department started in 2012 with only a half-time teacher, and now it's grown to 4 full-time positions essentially. Okay, so let's move on. Oh, and also that department, their vision is to promote a culture of inclusive excellence for students, staff, and families. So these are some of the speakers that have come to Olentangy within the recent year. We've got Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries, Dr. Goldie Muhammad, and Matthew R.K. They have all presented within the last year, and as you can see, these are their credentials. So we're going to go on and look at who these people truly are. So this slide is going to show you some of these presenters' Twitter and some of the things that they represent or they believe in. These presenters have some troubling points of view, and these are some recent tweets. As you can see, as early or as recent as May 3rd, May 2nd, May 5th. And they're talking mostly about white supremacy, systemic racism, and all of those things. The biggest contributor to our diversity and inclusion, or equity and inclusion, is Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries. I think this is a good person to introduce you all to because he is at Ohio State as a history professor. It looks as though he's trying to change the history into hard history within Ohio. He has spoken at many schools within Ohio, and these are some of his troubling points of view that we've noticed. Actually, first became aware of the issues in Olentangy because of the top left here. The police union objects to school visit by Ohio State professor. So the FOP objected to him speaking at Olentangy because he had written this tweet in October of 2017. I know some of these tweets you might not be able to see very well, but if you just search his Twitter handle, you'll be able to find all of his stuff. So the district actually had Jeffries come in to do a training this September, which was very frustrating because our kids and our families were going through hybrid learning, and they thought that it would be best to bring in somebody to talk about hard history instead of actually teaching our teachers how to navigate hybrid learning. So this was a training they did in September of this year. And the training was supposed to be centered on developing a sense of belonging. But as you can tell, it was actually a training teaching the staff hard history. So this is one of the first slides that he has. As you can see, there are protesters with signs calling to defund the police. And this actually caused some of the teachers that were in the trainings that were spouses of police officers to walk out of the training. They were very uncomfortable. Same with this slide. Notice the ACAB, the all cops are bad acronym. Blood is on your hands, no justice, no peace. These were all things that our teachers were having to look at and witness during their quote unquote training. And then he also went into this, the usual responses for hard history. So with the historical amnesia, he said that white people essentially want to forget the real history. With rationalizing evil, he essentially says, white people like to say it was of the time. And then the create false narratives, and that last part, he said, white people like to make heroes out of people, evil people like George Washington, James Madison, and Thomas Jefferson. He goes on to talk about, obviously, the 1619 Project and how we have to look at the slaves from the time that they came over and how our country is actually founded on slavery. One of the things that really disturbed me being a native Ohioan was this slide. He talked about how Ohioans were not good people, that by saying keep Ohio free, they really meant keep Ohio white because they didn't want slavery in Ohio because they didn't want Black people in Ohio, whether they were free or enslaved. So that was a tough thing to hear from him in that respect. Now, one of our things within Olentangy and the group I've been with is we've been trying to get testimonials from people within the district. So we have teacher testimonials. If you'd like to just read through these, if you're able to, some of the things, teachers are saying, I'm not qualified to talk to kids about microaggressions. Like, they don't have degrees in that. They don't have the skills to be doing that. Another teacher, I and many other staff members left on that day feeling completely defeated. I, for the first time in many years at Olentangy, felt like I completely did not belong in the district. And then this one's another very long testimonial, but she summed it up. I can sum it up with, on one occasion, he presented the desire for Americans in our history to find ways to stop the Black vote from mattering. I was concerned with his claim that the riots on Capitol Hill were due to the fact that white Americans did not want the Black vote to matter. And that was actually from a teacher outside of Olentangy, but like I said, he's been doing trainings all over Ohio. So that was something that they were able to contribute to us. And then
Maureen,
this is
can
another- Yes.
I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Now, when your group goes to the school board meetings and things like that, what do they say back to you when you present this stuff?
Well, it's wonderful that you say that, because right now we are only able to have participation through sending in comments. So that is our big agenda item number one, that we'd like to get our school board meetings open again. So right now it's just sending in comments and they read them at the meetings. So there's been a lot of people that have been sending emails to the board members, to the superintendent. We have had a couple of parents that have had actual incidences in their children's classrooms, which I can pull those up. Here's some instances where these are things that have been sent to us. These are actual things that have been assigned to their children. So yeah, we try to get a face in front of the school board, but they aren't allowing us into the school board meetings yet.
And is it your sense that COVID-19 is just an excuse not to listen to what you have to say?
Definitely, definitely. Yesterday, I once again emailed them all requesting that they open them up, and the school board president responded, "We're doing our best." And they have, sports outside, which is great, but the gymnasiums are open. They can fit at least 250 people in a gymnasium with the 6 feet. These are large schools. Olentangy schools have large high schools. They could put these meetings in these gymnasiums and it wouldn't be an issue.
Maureen, we're going to have to move on to our next speaker. Any kind of final words? And would you be kind enough to pass your PowerPoint on to us so I can put it on the website for people to see the rest?
Of course. Yes, I would love to do that. And I want to thank everybody. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
And also, we'll try to put your contact information up there if that's okay. Thank you so much for joining us at Empower You tonight for this special session.
All right, thank you.
Have a great night. Next, we're lucky to have tonight Kirsten Hill with us. Kirsten was elected to the State Board of Education in November 2018, representing District 2. Her term began in January 2019 and expires in December 2022. Kirsten and her husband Andy operated her family's year-round farm market in Lorain County for 25 years. She also ran a seasonal farm tour business, hosting families and preschool through elementary classes for many years. Kirsten, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you for joining Empower You.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. It's my honor. Now I just need to figure out how to make everything work here.
There you go. You're with us.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Glad to have you.
Right. Thank you. I want to also share my screen. Maybe before I do that, I like to read a lot. And I do make reference to a lot of people who write a lot of good things. And there's been a ton of things being written about critical race theory right now. And Victor Davis Hanson wrote recently in the Epoch Times about how much ruin do we have left. And this article was put up there in April 28th to May 4th edition. But essentially he's saying we're, it's kind of like Roman times. And related to education, he has several items in here, but perhaps the most important that we have is a first-rate inductive educational system. So let me share my screen. I have a few slides.
We've got you. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a couple quotes that folks might have seen before. Adolf Hitler, he alone who owns the youth gains the future, and Lenin, give me one generation of youth and I'll transform the whole world. I do have several slides and I will try to keep it to a minimum time. But when we get, towards the end, Dan, jump in as you have. So. Oh, the counties that I represent, for those who aren't familiar with District 2, it's Erie, Fulton, Huron, Lorain, Lucas, Ottawa, and Wood, basically up along the North Coast. And just to give you a little idea, what I am going to cover from what I've seen so far is talking a little bit about critical race theory in practice, about the Kohler Racist Equity Resolution that the state board passed, also known as Resolution 20. That name is mine. Promoting critical race theory by board members and the Ohio Department of Education, and then some responses to it, and a couple things about what you can do. I do want to insert, before getting into critical race theory, one other topic that's popped on the screen that you can add to that list that Tom Hagedorn said to look up, and that's action civics. And this, Stanley Kurtz has written an article recently, or in January, Action Civics Replaces Citizenship with Partisanship. In a nutshell, action civics is essentially taking the classroom and turning it into a place where teachers are turning the students into activists, and they aren't doing so much study and debate, but becoming activists. So a little bit about critical race theory in practice. As you've already heard from a couple of the parents in schools in Ohio, critical race theory is driving the cancel culture in schools. Those that call out systemic racism are looking to cancel people that don't agree. And all this activism in the classroom is hurting students academically, basically pushing aside the learning in language, math, arts, and sciences. And I just have a note here that as Tom said, it's basically setting us up to be the oppressors versus the oppressed, or pitting the woke against the non-woke. How do you recognize critical race theory? And they've mentioned some of it, but here is a little list of words you can start to pay attention to. I would say equity is the #1 word that I've noticed, but also you will hear terms or read terms or see terms: culturally responsive curriculum, anti-racist, racial sensitivity, unconscious or implicit bias, cultural awareness, diversity, inclusion, equity, justice, or you could just do diversity, inclusion, equity, which means die. I think it means kill the United States. A white privilege, whiteness, white supremacy. As an example, in the university, I did note an article from earlier in the year about a woman named Jody Shaw at Smith College. She was a staff there, and a couple quotes from the article. "Every day I watch my colleagues manage student," she has since left the college, I believe. "I watch my colleagues manage student conflict through the lens of race, projecting rigid assumptions and stereotypes on students, thereby reducing them to the color of their skin. I'm asked to do the same, as well as to support a curriculum for students that teaches them to project these same stereotypes and assumptions onto themselves and others. I believe such a curriculum is dehumanizing." So essentially, those teachers that you're seeing in the K-12 schools are coming out of universities, fully indoctrinated and trained for years on this stuff. She also is quoted, in other words, "Because I am white, my genuine discomfort was framed as an act of aggression. I was shamed and humiliated in front of all my colleagues. It is an environment in which dissenting from the new critical race orthodoxy, or even failing to swear fealty to it, like some kind of McCarthy-era loyalty oath, is grounds for public humiliation and professional retaliation." So that's where they're coming from a little bit. And another example of critical race theory, how it's affecting schools. Just in April, Virginia was getting rid of algebra 2, and geometry for all students before 11th grade. And I have a image that I'll show you here in a moment that kind of depicts why that happens. Some of the players are associations, and Dan, I will share these slides so you can put them up. I won't get into it deeply, but this
Thank you.
is the executive director of the Ohio Council of Math Teachers, and she's talking about how to promote equity in math. This here is a slide. It's very small. I've highlighted, but this was an actual email that I received, an invitation to a program as a state board member, and it was put out to the Kent State University education community, and it has all those buzzwords in it. It's a program that's coming up. Actually, it's today. It's probably going on right now, May 11th, and or it was going on earlier today. Okay, a little bit about the resolution that the board passed. July 14th at 11 p.m. at night last summer is when the resolution that I call Kohler, Laura Kohler is the president of the state board currently. And in June, she announced that she would have a resolution, but it was just like a innocuous half-page thing, kind of a reaction to the current things that were going on last summer with the issues in Washington State or Minnesota and so on. And there was public testimony that was received by the board during the September, October, and November meetings. And then after the November meeting, the board president claimed that no one else could come and talk on this topic to the state board, thus squelching opposing views. And that's continued till today. And here's the vote on the equity depicted. Essentially, there are 11 elected members and 8 appointed members. If there were no appointed, they're appointed by Governor DeWine to a 4-year term. If they were not there, the resolution would not have passed. The significance of this resolution, it kind of gives the go ahead and actually has wording of strongly recommends that local districts look at their operations, their hiring, their curriculum through an equity lens. And this is in the telling clause in the resolution, whereas equity is our plan's greatest imperative and number one principle. And then I have some information there about the meaning of equity at a website that you might want to take note of. Put this on your note list, newdiscourses.com. A gentleman named James Lindsay has put that together, and it's just chock full of all kinds of information about critical race theory 1619 and just all the terminology. Okay, and this is a picture that I thought is pretty telling. So on the left, equality does not mean the same thing as equity. And you can see equality means all 3 boys get the same size box and they all can kind of see over the fence and see the game. Equity means that it's an equal outcome. So CRT, I've circled the shovel there, is the shovel that digs the hole so nobody gets to see the game. Other key terms in the resolution, implicit bias training is required of all OD employees and contractors, and even board members were required to go through it. If you were an elected board member, as I am, it was an option, but the appointed members were required because in August, right after the July resolution was passed, Governor DeWine mandated that all state employees take implicit bias training. And then the other clause, and this ties into the local districts, strongly recommends, the Ohio Board of Education strongly recommends that all Ohio school districts examine hiring, curriculum, and student discipline for internal bias. This resolution sort of gave permission, I guess you'd say, for board members and the department to go on the road and really push this stuff. In my 2 years on the board, I haven't seen this kind of aggressive promotion of anything in a resolution. And so President Kohler and the Superintendent DiMaria spoke at the City Club. 4 of the board members were part of forums with the League of Women Voters. They use the term, look at everything through an equity lens. The Ohio Department of Education had a document. This is kind of very interesting, and I will include the link on this when I share the slides. But this anti-racist and allyship starter pack, it will really shock you, the materials, and that's the books. So the books that the women showed before, you'll probably see them on this suggested list of reading. And it was rather interesting, but the Ohio Department of Education took that down. I discovered it on the website, and then suddenly it was gone. I am going to just skip through these couple slides because you're already aware of local districts doing things. I've just started to collect some various districts. I do want to say that the agenda of the board meetings now includes presentations by local Ohio districts to the board, showing us what great stuff that local districts are doing in this realm of equity, diversity, inclusion, all together bundled in under the umbrella of critical race theory, though they don't use that terminology. Just a little fun fact, the Ohio Council of Social Studies had a grant opportunity listed, and that's direct grants to teachers, and Facebook is the lead supporter on that if they use materials promoting the 1619 project. I know I'm running out of time here. Kent State is a big pipeline for teachers coming out of college to fill the ranks of the teachers, and they have just recently formed an anti-racism and equity institute. Money is a big one, and $6 billion in grants is on the line, coming under the Civic Secures Democracy Act. I'm just going to skip through this, but you can look at it, a little more literature that we have been, actually this one, Smashing Whiteness in the Classroom, is an article written in October, and this is about Ohio, and that was written in the City Journal, Manhattan Institute. And then what can you do? We do need to stop the money, because the more that money flows, there's already money flowing out of the Ohio Department of Education into Ohio districts to support all the efforts that you see at the local level, because they don't do it for free. Those people they bring in to speak, they come at a pretty high price. So things you can do is tell your family, tell a friend, tell your neighbor. You can research your local school district, and I think that the others have already covered the activities that they're doing, so these are more general. You can contact the Ohio Board of Education, and I will insert on this slide how the URL, so you'll be able to get that information. It's not real easy to find.
Kirsten, on the new website, the stopcriticalracetheory.com, all those addresses are on there for people to write to. So if you could just kind of finish up real quick, any last minute things you would like to say?
Yes, the last item actually is right here. May 19th is the deadline for comments to be received at the Federal Register. This is very important. The Ibrahim Kendi and 1619 project are actually referenced by the U.S. Department of Education, their rule where this would keep more, continue or grow the money pot that's available from a federal level. And my understanding that some of this will actually be directed directly from the federal to the local schools. They might even be bypassing the Ohio Department of Education or the Board of Education. So I would encourage everybody to get on there and make a comment by May 19th. And there's the QR code if you want to scan that with your phone camera. And that's it.
One quick question that
Sure.
somebody asked, Kirsten. Is your sense that it's this stuff is seeping into elementary schools as well as junior high and high schools, or is it mostly just in high schools? Any quick answer you can give us on that?
You know, I don't have the knowledge on that the others on your presentation do, but I think it's, you know, it's available throughout these programs that I say that school districts come in and present. A lot of times they'll start with the high school, but then I think they are growing it down. I think it depends on the individual teachers and what they're doing. I'm sorry, can't answer that much better. Yeah.
Thank you so much tonight, Kirsten, for joining us at Empower You. Have a great night.
Yeah. Okay. Let me try to.
Good job. Thanks.
Okay.
Have a good night. Thank you so much. Kara Molfetta is next. She's a Lakota parent. And she told me the telling tale of what she found out when her school's lesson plan one day when her son came home from school. I'll let her tell you. And I just, we're so glad to have Kara here, who is a Lakota parent. Kara Molfetta, welcome to Empower You.
Hi, Dan. Thank you very much. My name is Kara. I'm a Lakota mom. I have 5 children. I have put my 5 children through Lakota. I have 2 left. I'm particularly concerned about my 8th grader. He's going into 9th grade this next coming year. His name is Vincent, and Vincent came home from school in December, and he had a slideshow shown to him in his advisory class. I want to preface this by saying I'm very well aware that when I spoke with the principal that day in December, that this slideshow presentation, Dan, would you be able to show that slideshow?
Yeah, I think Jay's got the slideshow ready to show. Jay, are you ready with that?
Okay. Well, I'll just keep talking until you put it up.
Okay.
Well, when the slideshow was created by a group of students from one of our high schools, I am aware of that. I guess it was a project that they were doing. But what had happened is I was told by the principal when I called him that day after I had seen the slideshow, and I was extremely upset about it. He told me that it was uploaded into a teacher resource file that the teachers in Lakota, I guess, have an opportunity to pull from work. But this was number one shown in an advisory class by a band teacher without any parental permission. The slideshow, when they get it up, described that there are more than 2 genders. They go on to describe the genders. They go on to describe the flags. They put some pictures of celebrities, and they talk about, basically glorifying everything. There you go. There it is. It also talks about how Christians are the most homophobic group around. There's a line in there that says your parents can be homophobic as well, and on and on and on. It was extremely disturbing to me. When I called the principal, like I said, he told me it was a slideshow put together by students, and that somehow it was not vetted and put into a teacher file. Since then, I want to say Lakota has changed their story on that now, and they're trying to tell me that students uploaded it into the teacher resource file. Okay, which is, they're just all changing their stories right now.
And
so that
Kara,
was extremely disturbing to me.
You can just tell me when you want me to advance the slides.
Oh, if you want to just do them like as we're going, like slow, so I guess they could read them would be good. So that day I told him I wanted my son physically out of school. I pulled him out and they put him on the virtual learning. So we started that, and that was right before Christmas break when this all started. So right after Christmas break, we got on the virtual learning. And I don't know how other school districts do it, but I know that in Lakota, we have a parent access to this, and the students have their student access. So I would go in on my parent access, and I can see his grades, and I can see each class, and I can see the actual assignments and videos that he is having to watch or listen to, or read or listen to. So I started going through those, and that is where I started seeing, to me, the mother lode of everything that was flowing into school. He had assignments basically since the beginning of March. He is, and up until currently today, he has been learning how to become an activist. I have really not let Vincent do any of these assignments, but this has been the assignment every day. It has been where they have to, they're giving them articles to read and videos to watch. Let me give you an example of some of these articles. There are a ton of them, so I'm just going to give you some excerpts. It was some activists. It was called 32 Young Activists Who Are Changing the World. So they had 32 of these people they could read and pick from. Some of these are talking about a girl who speaks about her immigration fears, how divisive and racist people are in this country towards immigrants, but they're also speaking about people crossing the border. So we're talking about illegal. So that, you know, to put racist with something illegal done to me is deceptive to the kids. So those are things like that. Then they talk about Planned Parenthood a lot in a very positive way. There's a girl who starred in a movie called The Hate You Give. It's the conversation on American racism in America. So they talk about people like that. They talk about Jazz Jennings. I don't know if anyone knows about that. They talk a lot about her, him, a boy who became a girl, and he has a TV show, and I know it's been out there for a little while, but they seem to glorify all this. They talk about drag queens, and not just in mention. These are all actual articles, so I would not even have the time to read them to anyone. Black Lives Matter saturates his work. To me, everything they talk about in here, in the articles, in the conversations about it, it's basically glorifying Black Lives Matter as some kind of savior group that's coming in to, you know, take care of our youth of today and make sure they understand the racism in the world. We have, there's a million. I'm just trying to pull some different examples. They talk a lot about police brutality against Blacks, the systemic racism, but it's a constant push on how the white people are doing this to the Black people, the oppressors and the oppressed. And it's a constant narrative in everything he reads and does. So everything started becoming extremely disturbing to me. We have another girl here who talks about that back in 2015, there was a 1,000 Black girl books drive for an 11-year-old girl. She was 11-year-old back then. And she wanted to donate 1,000 books with Black girls as main characters to other Black girls after becoming frustrated with the fact that she couldn't find any to read herself because she was sick of reading about white dogs and boys. Now, these are things, and they might sound like little things, but if you were to read all the articles, they are kind of serious and they're very impressionable to young children. A lot of the Black Lives Matter and the things that are going on, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull everything together. Let me go back with the activism. A lot of that was the Black Lives Matter. It's been going on since the beginning of March. When I had gone and spoke at our second board meeting, I quoted a father who spoke from Rockwell, Texas, and I'm sure many of you have seen that video online. I found him to be amazing. It was a Black father, and he spoke about how, you know, if he was to believe in white supremacy, he has to believe in Black inferiority. And I quoted that because I found what he said to be so amazing, because he said, I'm not inferior to anyone. Like, the color of my skin doesn't make me inferior. And that's what I believe. And I think that most of the parents in this country do believe too, but that's not what's being pushed to our children right now. What's being pushed is, and in these articles, it's saying that the Black kids are less than the white kids. Actually, there was one I wanted to read to you guys. I'll find it. And the white children should be sorry for being white and for what they've done. And these kids don't understand any of this. You know, my son being in school, you know, he's been called things because he doesn't believe in things that other kids believe in. And that's okay. And that's my whole point, is that, you know, it's not hateful to not believe what you believe. It doesn't mean I'm a hateful, I'm a homophobic person, I'm a racist if I don't believe that a boy can be a girl or a girl can be a boy. I mean, you're entitled to believe that. It doesn't mean I have to do that. So what I'm seeing happening in the school, especially in Lakota, is that it's not so much about these people being accepted. It's about the rest of us saying, yes, you are right, and I'm sorry for it, and I did it, and those type of things. I was confronted last night at the board, after the board meeting, by a woman who said she was a teacher. She said she wasn't a teacher for Lakota, but she told me I was a hateful woman. And I said, why am I a hateful woman? And she said, because you said that all LGBTQ people are perversions. And I said, when did I say that? And she said she saw the second board meeting that I spoke at, and I did use the word perversions. But what she did was she took that word and she attached it where she wanted it to be. So I told her that was a her problem, not a me problem, because that was not even a thought in my mind when I said what I said.
Kara, we're going to have to leave it there, but
Yes.
But it's just so hard to believe all this stuff has become part of education, and how concerning it would be to be a parent. I just can't even imagine. And thank you so much for sharing your perspective on Lakota School District, which is right outside Cincinnati.
Yes.
And
can I just say one more thing quickly?
Sure,
we need parents, we need grandparents, we need concerned community members. This is about caring about all of the kids. And when they walk through those doors, they should all be treated equally with dignity and respect. And this stuff is divisive. It is dividing them and making them into hateful people.
It's pitting kids against each other because of their skin color.
Very much so. Yes.
And a comment from Janice about critical race theory. Yes, it's in the primary classrooms. Lakewood Public Schools of Cleveland has all teachers doing implicit bias training in primary schools. Thank you for that, Janice. Thank you, Kara, for filling us in on Lakota School District. Have a good night, and thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much.
We had longer. Our next guest, Mark Razinski, has been an 8th grade American history teacher for the past 24 years. He's also a proud veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, where he served as a TOW missile operator in Desert Shield Storm. Mark, thank you so much for your service. He lives in rural Ashland County with his wife, Christy, and his 3 high school children, Joshua, Rebecca, and Nathan. He's a member of the VFW in the Medina Bible Church located in Medina. I so wanted to have you on this session tonight, Mark, because—
Yes, thank you very much.
Because, in Empower You, we teach so much about history in so many classes, all the important founders, and all this stuff, it just doesn't make sense with what we've been learning about our founding of our country, and it just drives me crazy. Welcome to Empower You. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much. I've been thinking about Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty speech, and as he spoke in 1775, and he said that he had to speak forth his sentiments freely and without reserve. And I feel that way tonight. Some of this I can go through a little faster. A lot of this had been mentioned tonight. But my main point, critical race theory, it desires to negatively rebalance society politically, economically, socially, educationally, and even religiously. It's a very dangerous philosophical system. I'm amazed that so many in our society, especially in education, desire to see it come to fruition. CRT doesn't offer any personal repentance, forgiveness, faith, hope, love to any of our citizens, whether black or white. It's a damning system to all people, and it offers a hopeless worldview. I wanted to spend some time and talk about our current social studies standards. The goal of social studies education in Ohio is to promote civic competence, to create active and engaged participants, a commitment to democratic values, to use knowledge about one's community, nation, and the world, to collaborate, to make decisions, problem solve. So these are just some of the common goals. Democratic values, if you're wondering, would be defined as life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, justice, the common good, equality, truth, popular sovereignty, patriotism. And so these things are found in our curriculum. I wanted to go ahead and show, I want to share my screen here. I wanted to go through some of our slides. Just bear with me here. All right, I just wanted you to see this. Is this coming through okay?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. As far as social studies goes, not all of these are bad, but it was said at the board that, in this new school board resolution to advance equity and opportunity for Black students, Indigenous students, students of color, that we were called to eliminate bias in our curriculum. And I'm not seeing it. This certainly is not this is public knowledge. This is nothing fancy. I don't have any special, access to this. This is just Ohio social studies standards, but I just made a quick few slides here. Grade K in for history, you talk about diverse cultures. Grade 1 geography, you talk about cultural practices. And again, for time's sake, I'll go through these quickly. You talk about common goals in homes and schools. Again, these are collaboration, respecting the rights and opinions of others. As we move through the elementary grades, the rights of self and others. Groups are accountable for their choices. Grade 3, members of local communities have rights and responsibilities. They can take action. We get into grade 4, we talk about the anti-slavery movement, the Underground Railroad, the population becoming more diverse, different perspectives. We get to grade 8 where I teach race-based slavery, forced migration of Africans. And the reason I'm talking about all this is because it was stated at the board that we're supposed to look and find, racism in our curriculum. And I wanted to bring this out. I'm not seeing it. We talk about grade 8 cultural biases, stereotypes, prejudices, active participation in social and civic groups. At the high school level, immigration, urbanization, conflict with American Indians, Reconstruction and racial discrimination, the progressive era, addressing the quote ills of American society, racial intolerance. Again, we could continue to go on. I think you see my point. Harlem Renaissance, African American migration, women's suffrage, the Red Scare, McCarthyism, environmental protection. None of this is hidden. Expanded rights for women and indigenous peoples. Again, so nothing here is secret. I did want to put this up here. What happened to military and veteran history? As a veteran myself, I see very little, if anything, regarding our military. I can't find one battle mentioned in our social studies curriculum. There are noble things about the curriculum. I pointed out the negative ones tonight, but again, as far as the state board resolution, I'm not seeing racial bias there. As far as I got to wonder, this is what I see. What any proponent of critical race, how are they coming up with ideas that our curriculum doesn't address any of the ills of society or of history? I found an article. It was written by the Ohio Social Studies Review, spring 2016 issue, volume 53, issue 1. Was written by an Ohio high school teacher and a professor from University of Cincinnati. And the authors discuss American history, the syllabus, and how it avoids race and racism. And here's the answer: through exclusion grouping and an overemphasis on geopolitics and capitalism. So according to them, it's just by grouping everything together that it's not hitting any specific targets. This article mandates that the studying of race in social studies is a top priority. The article talks that teachers are meant to infuse their social studies classrooms with aspects of critical race theory. Goes on to say that teachers, should shift their teaching towards social justice and value, in a key word here, experiential knowledge in the classroom rather than something that's logical. And they end the article talking about there's an over emphasis on, again, foreign policy and how the United States operates as a dominant world power. Again, very shocking to me, not only as a teacher, but as a veteran. I wanted to point out a few other unique aspects of critical race and how it functions as a worldview from a teacher perspective. A worldview, if you're not familiar with this, it's a story that answers the basic questions about life and reality. Who are we? What are the fundamental problems we have as human beings? What are the solutions to those problems? What is our principal moral duty? What is our purpose in life? A worldview is a meta-narrative, a lens through which we view and interpret all other evidence and all other claims. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion. So again, from a teacher perspective, critical race theory takes an illogical approach to truth claims. Normally, when someone makes a claim about what is true, you require that claim to be supported by reason, logic, and argument. You test that claim against the available evidence to determine whether it is true. When someone makes a truth claim, the first question asked by CRT is not, is this claim true, but what incentives does this person have to make this claim? What social or political agenda motivates this statement? How does the statement function to preserve power and privilege? A genetic fallacy is an argument that is based on unsound reasoning. A genetic fallacy occurs when a claim is accepted as true or false based on the origin of the claim. Instead of looking at the actual merits of the claim, it is judged based on its origin. An example would be a man named Martin might say, all white people are not racists. Charlie would say, yes, they are. You just believe that because you're white. An explanation is Charlie is making two errors. He's assuming that Martin must be wrong, and he's basing that assumption on an accidental feature of Martin, the amount of pigmentation in his skin. In the same way, CRT bypasses the question of whether the claim is true and focuses the discussion on the claimant's group identity. The primary concern for people who have embraced critical race theory is not appealing to reason, argument, evidence, or even to scripture in the case of Christianity. Their primary concern is unearthing and deconstructing the hidden motives of their opponents. So, according to CRT, their claims can be ignored. To summarize all this is truth can't be known, and it certainly can't be understood if you're from the, quote, oppressing nationality, gender, or religion. Again, schools that don't teach any truth. Shocking. Some negative implications of this philosophy would be that as educators, we should never challenge lived experience, ever. We need to liberate our theology, even from privileged groups. We should dismantle all structures which perpetrate privilege. We should all be warned where these beliefs will take us if followed consistently. Another unique aspect is
Mark, I think we've got to sum up. You have any final kind of words you want to share? I think your observations have been great, though.
Thank you very much. Just the unique to avoid victimization. We should treat victims charitably, but again, we need to not remove people from moral responsibility. To celebrate American history, we need more of that in the curriculum. It's so important to celebrate. There are better ways to educate our youth rather than bringing up the negatives of our past. We certainly need to not ignore any injustices, but we need to celebrate our history. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak and share tonight.
Thank you so much, Mark Rodzinski. Have a great night.
Thank you.
The last speakers tonight are Colleen and Karen. Colleen has lived in the Kings local school district for 20 years. She and her husband raised two children who attended public school, and Colleen became a watchdog for public schools when working on a bond issue. Her passion is advocating for students. Karen, and these two are teaming up together on one screen tonight, has lived in the Kings local school district for 8 years. She's raised two sons who are both husbands, fathers, and productive members of society. She recently became a voice for parents who are afraid to speak against critical race theory. Colleen and Karen, welcome. And you're batting kind of cleanup for us tonight. So you've got about seven or 8 minutes. We'll have to finish this up, but welcome to Empower You. We're glad to have you.
We'll be quick.
Thank you.
Thanks. So for anybody who's not local and doesn't know where Kings is, it's right, but we are in Kings Island's back door. And we are in a pretty traditionally conservative area. So the things that we're starting to unearth in our school district are really pretty surprising. So we were told by some anonymous people, of course, everybody's afraid to speak out because, we all know that retribution in school districts against students can be pretty rampant and tough. So we tend to be a voice for those people. And we were told about a couple of things happening in our school district, particularly one student came forward to tell us about a book that was being read in our English classes in high school, 2 of our English classes as required curriculum. When I approached our district about this, the district's explanation was that these were elective classes. When I asked more questions, the reality is that they are elective in the sense that they are one of 4 required years of English in Ohio. And both of the classes where this book is offered and required are the only 2 that are offered for honors students in the fourth opportunity for the 4th credit in English for Ohio. So calling it a optional isn't quite accurate. So the book we're referring to, of course, is Stamped Racism, Anti-Racism U by Ibram X. Kendi. It is an adaptation of of another version that is meant for adults. Karen's going to recap a little bit about a couple of the things that are in the book. But again, I want to spell, anybody who's been listening, you've heard the name Ibram X. Kendi. I'm going to spell it because this is important. We got to know who this guy is. IBRAM X KENDI. He's a professor at Boston University, and I encourage everybody to really look him up. And another quick note, this past week, I worked with the board, I made a complaint to the board about Black Lives Matter flags being flown in our classrooms. We had a report from a student that the American flag was not being flown in those classrooms. I do not know right now if that is true currently. I don't have visual proof of it. So, that's kind of some.
There were 2 separate students who don't know each other.
Right.
Who told us that.
So anyway, I approached the board, who then, passed the buck to the superintendent, who told me unequivocally the Black Lives Matter flag was staying in our classrooms, that they do not violate our policies. Our policies state basically no political propaganda anywhere in or on the school grounds. And apparently that flag does not violate those policies because it supports students and does not represent a specific organization and isn't political. And I'm just flabbergasted by that response. As a side note, that same superintendent was a superintendent at another local school district who I believe around a year ago had a teacher who was flying the BLM flag in her classrooms, and they immediately pulled the flag down and dealt with that teacher appropriately in recognition that it violates their policies. So Karen, do you mind telling them a little bit about what's in the book?
Well, sure. The book, when we heard about it, it was an honors student, a straight A student, came home and told her mother she didn't know quite what to do because this book was required. And she just started reading it. And she said, I can't read this book. It's against the church. And they didn't want to step out. They didn't feel safe. She's in her senior year. They're not going to go make waves and maybe jeopardize her graduation or her grades at this point. So I went and got the book and I read it. And yes, they do hit Christians really hard. They hit them in the beginning pretty hard. And then just little nuances throughout the book. The second half of the book really lays out a case for violent protests being the only effective way to be taken seriously by white people. I mean, he does go in, he talks about Martin Luther King, he talks about him as though, bless his heart, he sure had the right idea, but didn't get anywhere. This book tells children Martin Luther King's peaceful protests got nothing. He says nothing happened until the Black Panthers showed up with guns. And by the way, he says the guns were real. And it really lays out a case that it's time to do it again. I had borrowed the book from the library. I'm going to have to get it so I can read parts of it to the board next time. I can have her copy. So, but anyway, so when I went to the board with that, I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, last summer in the middle of COVID and trying to figure out how they're going to get kids back in school, they also approved this for curriculum. So I assumed maybe they just didn't read it. Certainly, if they read this book, they would not have approved it. And I didn't say it to them that way. I just asked if they would please read or reread the book and reconsider whether it's appropriate for the students. Well, I heard nothing for a whole month. So I went back again last month and I asked if they had read the book. The board members had read the book. They could not answer me. They refused to answer me.
And this book was approved by our Board of Education based on a very quick synopsis written by somebody in our district that completely misrepresented the book. And so we can't expect our boards of education to read every single piece of curriculum. So I'm not surprised that they approved the book. I'm really not.
And I also asked, when I asked if they had read the book, I also asked what the unique educational goal of that this book addresses that could not be addressed by a book that's not so blatantly anti-Christian and anti-American and racist.
Ladies, thank you so much for bringing this to Empower You tonight. You're a great team and keep up your great work at King's. Thank you so much for joining Empower You. And I'm so sorry we didn't have more time tonight to talk to everybody. I just have a few things I need to share with you before you leave tonight, everyone. So hang in there with me for just a couple of minutes. 3 quick questions that come from the audience. Does Governor DeWine have the power to stop this at the state level? Yes, I believe he does. Number 2, has Governor DeWine commented on CRT himself? No, he hasn't, even though we've tried to get him to, but he sure has commented on equity, and his comments on equity is that he is for them, which counter the words I read you from John Husted today. Thirdly, does the governor have the authority to remove appointed members of the Ohio Board of Education? I think that is an unknown question. The question surely has been asked. Just a couple things I have to share with you before we leave tonight that are important that I just can't let you leave from. And the first is this article right here that's on stopcriticalracetheory.com. It is from our friend Tom Zawitowski. And this is on the action tab of the website that I gave you the direction to. And this gives you an exact method of what you can do and how you need to approach the board to find out if critical race theory is in your child's or your grandkids' school. Tom has really done a great job here with freedom. I call them public information requests. He calls them Freedom Information Act letters. If you follow this, you are going to put the board on notice that you know what's going on. And from there, there's several steps that can be taken, legal steps. So I urge you to look at this on the action tab of the website I told you about. And that website again is stopcriticalracetheory.com. I urge you to sign up for it. I urge you to send it to as many of your friends, coworkers, people that are interested in this as you can. I want to tell you that tonight, at least 3 legislators in Ohio signed up to attend this class. I'm challenging those legislators today to put forward resolution to end this critical race theory that is pitting students against each other because of their color. And lastly, tonight I have a Empowered Citizen Award, and that award goes out to the incredible 30 teachers that made this semester really one of our best ever semesters for Empower You. It was just a great one, so many good classes. And I just look forward to Empower You's return for its 22nd semester on September 23rd. The reason we did this class, my overriding goal is, and you could tell from the passion of everybody that spoke out, I'm sorry we didn't have twice as much time for each speaker, but you could tell what I wanted you all to get a sense of is where critical race theory is. And it's really everywhere. You need to know. If anything comes up over the summer, when Empower You's kind of off, we will have summer school. So tonight, for so many people that signed up. I just want to tell you this season, I've got a real affinity for all you. And I see you out there making a difference. You're empowered citizens. So many of you worried about your neighbors, your friends, your families, your coworkers. I love your notes you send me, your thoughts. Keep them coming. And so as the sun sets tonight, I urge you to go out there. Be thankful for the oh so many blessings that we have and empower you.